So today I want to talk about the 4 promises that we make as a Tibetan Buddhist or as a Buddhist. 4 promises. And the first promise is to our mortality. And the second promise is to sentient beings, living beings. And the third promise is to our teachers or Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And then the fourth promise is to our own true nature, to our own self. So, or to wisdom, which is our true nature. So the first promise is to our mortality. In other words, the first promise is to death. Knowing death, knowing that understanding our mortality. Knowing that we will die one day. This is a fact, isn't it? It's not something we can avoid. There's 2 things in life we cannot avoid, we say, is taxes and death. So anyway, 인생에서 피할 수 없는 2가지가 이제 죽음과 세금이라고. Anyway, so basically we cannot avoid death. Everyone will die, and so we will die, but nobody has this kind of awareness of their mortality. And this promise is to become more aware of our mortality, more aware that we will die. And when we become more aware of our mortality, we realize that our time on this earth, our time in this body is limited. So that means that we don't have much time. And we have a limited amount of time. And we don't know exactly how much time we have left. Nobody knows. So when we understand this, time becomes very precious. So the first promise is actually to time, you can say also. And time is life. Time is life. 이 정도는 알아듣죠? Time is life. Time is life. Time is life. 죄송합니다. Anyways, time is life. So that means that if we waste time, we waste our life. We waste our precious life. This precious opportunity to do something good, to especially to do some meditation and spiritual practice in order to progress on the path, because this life is not the end. And the only thing that we can take with us when we die is our mind. So whatever work we've done on our minds, we can take with us. But anything that you do for this life, for this body, for wealth, and this you cannot take with you. So the first promise is to our mortality, to understand that we will die, and to make the most use of this precious life and precious opportunity to do something meaningful, to do something fruitful, to do something beneficial. And what is beneficial, what is fruitful, what is meaningful? It is meditation. It's the spiritual practice. We say that death reveals the truth. In other words, we will know that this life is fleeting. We know that this life doesn't last, and the things that we thought were so important at death will not be important, right? The things that we consider so important in this life, at death they become, they lose their importance. There was a person who was on his deathbed, and he was a very wealthy person, and he had a very beautiful wife, and he had a very beautiful ex-wife. And he was very famous, and he had a lot of money, and well respected in society. And so somebody asked him, what does all this mean to you? Your beautiful wives and your money and your status, and he said, now that I'm about to die, they don't mean anything to me, So these kind of things, the more we invest in this life, the more we will regret it at the time of death. So the first promise we have to make is to our mortality, to spend our time wisely and to not waste any time, and to use our time to awaken, to use our time to help others, to accumulate virtue, to become a better person, and to contribute as much as we can to the happiness of others, to the happiness of our society, and to world peace, and to the happiness of the world, as much as possible with our time, as well as our spiritual practice. Of course, our spiritual practice is the most important thing to do, because from our spiritual practice we can help more people on a greater scale. And as of now, our ability to be of help to others is very limited. In fact, we tend to cause harm to others, and we don't want to. It's not we do it intentionally, but because of our karma, and because of when we do spiritual practice, it gives us the ability to not harm others and to be of help to others. So our spiritual practice is the priority number one. So, and on the basis of our spiritual practice, then we can try to help others and be of help to others, be of help to society. So that's the first promise. The first promise is to our mortality, or to death. You say muerte or muerto? Which is muerte. Okay, thank you. Oh, dead person, muerto. Oh, okay. Oh, gracias. La segunda promesio es sentient beings. The second promise is to sentient beings, to living beings. This is second promise. So the second promise, first think about our family, our parents, and also our family, and also the friends and people who we know. So these people, they've helped us a lot in our lives, right? So especially our parents, without them we wouldn't be alive, and we owe so much to them. But then also those who helped us along, our teachers, our friends, our relatives. In order to repay their kindness, we should try to practice. For example, to repay the kindness of your parents, of course you can buy them a house, or kind of support them or help them when they're ill. This is kind of all very good, but the best way to repay the kindness of our parents is through our spiritual practice, because our spiritual practice directly affects those who are connected with us in this life. And so if we awaken, this will help our parents. So we want to repay the kindness of those who have helped us, but those who have helped us are no different than all sentient beings. In Buddhism, we try not to make differentiation between those who are close to us and those who have harmed us and those who don't know. So they're all just, living beings who want to be happy. So if we think about it like that, it's very easy to want to be of help to them and not cause suffering to anybody, right? So, think about it yourself. You want to be happy, right? and you don't want suffering. But everybody is like that. There's no one who wants suffering, not even animals, not even insects, right? And everybody wants happiness, including insects, including Ati, my dog. So everybody wants happiness. All living beings want happiness. They don't want suffering. So on this basis, we can kind of connect with all beings, and we can understand perspective of all beings. And then, on this basis, we can try to be of help and not harm. And we can wish all beings be happy and be free from suffering. And on the basis of this wish, we can act to be of help and not harm. And this is called bodhicitta. And so the second promise is to bodhicitta, or to all beings. And that is that the second promise is not harm beings and be of help to them as much as possible. And our capacity to help others is limited because we have our karma, because we have our attachments. We are subject to our karma. Our ability to be of help to others is limited. So we must practice and become free from our karma, and then our ability to help others increases. And then with our spiritual practice, we can truly repay the kindness of our parents and all those who have helped us in this life. So this is the second promise. The promise is to sentient beings. I like to think of the second promise as taking an interest in beings, having an interest, 관심, having an interest in all beings, not only those who are close to us, but there are so many people suffering, like in the war zones around the world, the people who, there's so much suffering, aren't there? But because we don't know them, we don't really let's say one of our relatives is suffering, or our father is suffering, or something like that, then it's a huge deal to us, right? But then when these so many people who are suffering in wars, of course we don't feel good about that, and also we hope that they will be free from suffering, but we don't take as much interest in those people we don't know. But why shouldn't we? Because they're suffering. Suffering is suffering. It doesn't matter who's suffering, does it? We should try to get rid of suffering, whether it's my parents' suffering, or whether it's someone else's parents' suffering, or whether it's my friend suffering, or someone that I don't know, or even someone who I don't like. Suffering is not good for anyone, right? So this kind of attitude we should have toward all beings, and just help as much as we can. You could say the second promise is to your parents. You can make this promise to your parents, unless you don't like your parents. Does everyone like their parents? Any problems? Of course, we all have some problems, but you and you like, is it? Yeah. You like your parents?
I like them.
Yeah.
They're not perfect. But
Okay. You love them?
I love them.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I always forgive them. And
Yeah. Of course. Of course. That's good. That's good. Some people have a grudge toward their parents, but everyone has some, mixed feelings about their parents. But generally, we love them, right? And that's mostly the case. We love our parents. So you should promise your parents that you will do all you can to not harm them, and to help them, and to also be liberated for them, to become enlightened for them. And then you expand the scope. All beings who are like my parents, no different than my parents, and also who were my parents in previous lives, according to Mahayana Buddhism. And then you think, for all beings I will become enlightened, and for all beings I will repay their kindness, and I will help them as much as I can, and support their liberation, support their freedom, support their happiness, and not cause harm, and help them get rid of suffering as much as I can. So this is kind of the promise, second promise. So you can say the second promise is to your parents. and all beings who are just like your parents. So this is the second promise. The third promise is to our teacher, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and that is to always remember them, to always pray to them, and to always feel their presence and connect with them. And actually, this third promise is such a powerful help for our spiritual practice. It's very, very, we call it blessings, right? Blessings. Blessings is something very, a little bit, it's not tangible, it's not, you cannot really see it with your eyes, but it's something very powerful. And so the third promise is always to remember our enlightened teachers, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and like Genrazi and Kwanseum Bosar and also Sakamuni, Buchanim, Shakyamuni, and like His Holiness Dalai Lama, is to remember our teachers and always kind of be in their presence, kind of always pray to them, always kind of feel their presence. And this is a very powerful way to support our own practice. So always remember their kindness, to always remember, to always be in their presence, to always think of them. You know, you can do this with mantra, you can do this with prayers, and you can, or you can just feel their presence. And then the fourth promise is to our own true nature, our nature of mind, or our Buddha nature, also to wisdom or to emptiness. And that means that never solidify or reify anything. In other words, all causes of suffering is through reification. Reification means to make something real. For example, let's say you heard some kind of gossip and someone said something bad about you, and then you become very angry and you start to make like all kinds of stories about how bad the person is and how how unfair this is. So the fourth promise is to not make any stories. Stop making stories. And the reason that this is the promise to our true nature or to wisdom is because we say our true nature is emptiness. In other words, nothing actually exists in the way that we think it exists, the way it appears. Because reality is not the way things appear. One of the main reification is about yourself. You have your name and you have your body, and you constantly reify the self, saying, I'm this, I'm that, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm beautiful, whatever, good or bad. You're constantly reify the self, which actually doesn't really exist. It's kind of like made by our imagination. And the stronger you reify the self, the greater the attachment to the self. And the greater the attachment to the self, the greater the suffering. So stop defining who you are. You can live without always defining who you are. You're bad, good, or all these kind of characteristics you try to make up. And also, you actually don't know yourself that well, actually. People, they don't know themselves very well. They think they do, but they don't. And actually, meditation is about, we say, deconstruction of the self. You start to let go of everything that you think you are, which is the body, thoughts, emotions, the name, and then what you're left with is your true self. So we're trying to deconstruct, and what is samsara? What is suffering? It is construction. So samsara is like the construction business. It's making stuff. That's samsara. Suffering. We're all suffering is made in our minds, in our heads. All suffering. So if you don't make anything in your head, also there's no suffering. So if thoughts are not proliferated, if thoughts do not proliferate, no suffering, no obstacles, no problems ever. There's never any problem. Whatever happens in life, there's never any problem as long as you're not attached to it. The only way you suffer is by being attached to your thoughts and emotions. So if you're not attached to your thoughts and emotions, if you don't make anything with your thoughts, if you don't make a story, then there's no suffering. So the fourth promise is to never make a story in your head, to never make anything, to stop being a novelist, fiction, stop making up this fiction. We're all writing fiction in our heads all the time, about this, about that. And so you might think, well, if I don't think, maybe, that I can't live without thinking. Is that true? Of course, there is the kind of necessary thinking. For example, when you came here, you had to think how to come to the center, how to get to the Gyeongbokgung station, and you had to, of course, that kind of thinking is okay, necessary. Also, when you learn about meditation, you have to think. That's also okay. But I'm talking about the habitual thinking, or the thoughts that arise from the conditioned mind, the habitually arising thoughts. These are the thoughts that create so much problem for us. The automatically arising thoughts. These thoughts are the ones that are, arise from this default mode and causes us so much suffering. So these kind of thoughts we have to be very wary of and not make anything with those thoughts. So the fourth promise is to wisdom, is to our true nature, is to not make anything. You don't need to constantly define yourself. You don't need to constantly judge others or come to conclusions. It's such a makes your head full of so many ideas, it makes things very complicated. It makes life very complicated. So if we can just learn to live more simply, and we don't need to define yourself or define life or define others in order to live. You don't. You don't need to, for example, you don't need to think when you are doing your household chores. When you're vacuuming or when you're cleaning the floor, when you're doing dishes. Do you need to think? No. You can do it without thinking. You just act. And then same with conversations. You don't need to constantly be thinking, what should I say? Or we're always practicing what to say, and then we say what we've practiced, what we've rehearsed in our heads. That's not very spontaneous or natural. So these kind of things, we do a lot of unnecessary thinking and planning, and also we do so many, we have so much desire, and we're always trying to do stuff, and these kind of things, they never pan out. It's just a waste of time. We've made so many plans, we've desired so many things, we wanted to live so many places, we wanted to do so many things, we wanted to buy so many things, but really, how much of that have we accomplished? Not very much. So it's better to live more spontaneously, more naturally, more in the moment. So in the Zen Buddhism, we call this the don't know mind. Keeping the don't know mind. So these are the four promises. Okay, the first promise is to our mortality, that is to use our time wisely. Second promise is to sentient beings, and that is to be of help to others and to take interest in others. And the third promise is to our teachers, and that is to always be in their presence, to always remember them. And then the fourth promise is to our own true nature, and that is, or to wisdom, and that is to stop making stories, stop making things out of your thoughts. That's the four promises we make in Buddhism.